So we're at the end of this install here, and we're going to discuss the most important step, which is priming the supercharger oil loop. The pump in the supercharger itself is a push pump only. It's not a pull pump, so it has to be primed before the truck can be run. So to do this, we're going to add about 1/3 of the bottle of oil to the reservoir, and we're going to crack the oil inlet banjo bolt loose. And then we're going to take a rag, and we're going to take shop air, and we're going to apply a little bit of pressure to the top of the reservoir. So like I said, we're going to add about 1/3 of the bottle to the reservoir to start. Make sure when you're doing this, you don't overfill the reservoir, because it's going to make a mess. Alright, so that's about 1/3 there. And then you're going to take your shop blow gun, you're going to take a rag, you're going to wrap it around a couple times, like so. Stick it in the top of the reservoir. You use the rag to make a seal. And then just apply a little bit of pressure. Don't go crazy, because you can potentially cause damage to the supercharger. And while you're doing this, watch the oil inlet for oil to start coming out. As soon as the oil starts coming out, either you yourself or have a buddy help you close the fitting. So make sure when the oil starts coming out that is a steady stream of oil, not just a little trickle. And that's about it as far as the lead procedure. So now with the oil inlet banjo bolt snug, you can go ahead and torque that to the 186 inch-pounds. Then you can wipe off the excess fluid, and what you want to do now is fill the reservoir the rest about halfway, half to 3/4 full. So as you saw, we just primed the supercharger and we're about to start the truck up. A couple things before we do that. Upon first startup, what's going to happen is that the reservoir is going to get sucked dry pretty quickly. Make sure it doesn't get sucked dry. So that means continue to add fluid as the supercharger is pulling the fluid through. And you're going to use about 3/4 to 7/8 of the bottle when you're done. Unless you put the oil cooler back near the trans, you're going to end up using probably about the whole bottle. Once you add about 7/8 of the bottle, what you want to do is stop and check for leaks real quick. And as long as there's no leaks, you should be good to go. The last step is to rev the truck to about 2,500, 3,000 RPM for a minute or so, and watch the top of the reservoir, watch for circulation. You may not exactly see circulation, but you will see bubbles. You'll see some sort of fluid movement in there, and as long as that's happening, you're all good to go. If that's not happening, you're probably going to have to go back and you're going to have to prime the supercharger again, which isn't a big deal if it's already been filled. You just have to crack the banjo bolt loose and apply pressure to the top again until you see a steady stream coming out. Alright, so another thing to note, guys, is the minute of max on the dipstick. Make sure you're checking this fluid while the engine's running. It can be at idle, that's okay. And if you overfill, if you're above the max line, it's not the end of the world, but you may run into oil leaking out of the top of the reservoir a little bit. If that is the case, just use a suction gun and suck some out.